Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, this is a very special occasion. I am Provost John Coleman. It is my great delight to welcome you all here for today's Fireside Chat. On behalf of Chancellor Isbell and the entire University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, really delighted that all of you are gathered here to hear what I'm sure will be a stimulating conversation up here on the podium. But prior to all that stimulating conversation, you have to hear from me for a few minutes. So I will try to keep this brief to get you to the meat of the program. We are gathered here today to honor this year's Hall of Fame inductees and to share in what promises, as I said a moment ago, to be a truly insightful conversation with two extraordinary Illinois and Grainger engineering alumni, Arvind Krishna, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of IBM, and Sidney Lu, Chair and Chief Executive Officer of FoxConn Interconnect Technology. Arvind and Sidney, it is a true honor to welcome you back to campus. Congratulations to both of you on your well-earned inductions into the Hall of Fame. You both truly exemplify the spirit of excellence at Illinois with your careers that have been so full of bold and innovative thinking and the relentless pursuit of having a positive social impact here in the United States and throughout the world. We very much look forward to hearing from both of you today. As a university, we are deeply proud that the professional paths of these distinguished alumni began right here in the classrooms and the labs at Illinois. Their journeys have been a testament to the power of education, innovation, and the pursuit of shaping society for the better, all of which are bedrock values of this great institution. This event, as you know, is cast as a fireside chat. The format of a fireside chat by nature sets the stage well for reflection and for the sharing of great wisdom, for storytelling and recounting of lessons learned along the way. And we are grateful to be able to share all of that today in a conversation with our two distinguished alums. Today's event reminds us of the profound impact our alumni have, not only in their fields, but also in elevating this university and, importantly, in inspiring the next generation of Grainger engineers and leaders. So before I conclude, I also want to offer a special welcome to State Senator Paul Faraci, sitting up here in the front. Senator Faraci is a U of I alum, and he is an absolutely great and tireless champion of this university. We are very fortunate to have someone like Senator Faraci supporting us at the State Capitol. We very much appreciate you being here today. Thank you again to Arvind Krishna and Sidney Lu for participating, for your travels to get here, and thank you all for joining us today. To guide us through this conversation, I'm pleased to turn the proceedings over now to Rashid Bashir, Dean of the Grainger College of Engineering. Dean Bashir.
All right. Oh, no second. I think we need to do a round of applause for our esteemed guest. So one more round of applause for Arvind. And we'll be celebrating them through the day, actually, through this next hour and through the day. So good afternoon. My name is Rashid Bashir. I'm really humbled and honored to be the Dean of the Grainger College of Engineering. Thank you all for coming. This is a very special day for us, and I'm just super excited to have two of our most distinguished alums here come here today. The probability of getting them both, or the probability of getting them individually was low enough, and getting them both together was almost impossible. So I think this was amazing that they both were able to come here on the same day. Later tonight, they'll be formally inducted into the Grainger Engineering Hall of Fame, the highest honor awarded by the college, bestowed upon engineering alumni and others who have demonstrated significant achievements and impact on the world. The Hall of Fame is about 60 members, represent an extraordinary array of contributions across multiple engineering and computing fields. technology pioneers, including those who have shaped and are shaping the digital and the physical age itself. Co-founders of YouTube, PayPal, and so many other companies. Innovators who have made their marks on companies like IBM and FoxConn, and companies like Microsoft, Oracle, and others. The inventors among them are responsible for the JPEG image format, the LED, the Mosaic web browser, the quantum well laser, and so much more. So we're just so honored to have this caliber of people come through our university and come through our college. And as I say always, if there's one thing that keeps me up at night as a dean is how do you stay on that trajectory? And I know in the audience today, the students that we have, we're looking at the future of these kind of contributions from the people that are here today. Beyond engineering, computing, technology, and business, the Hall of Famers also are those individuals who have shaped society in really unexpected ways. For example, the founder and longtime coach of Chicago Bears is also our alum. I don't know how many of you knew that. So he's an alum from the Civil Environmental Engineering and is on the Hall of Fame. United across disciplines and time, the members of the Grainger Engineering Hall of Fame share one common accomplishment. They transform the world, not for the glory, but for the good of humanity. Today, Arvind and Sidney will be inducted alongside Grainger Chair Emeritus Professor Pete Sauer, who has passed away. He's also being recognized today posthumously for his contributions in power systems engineering and his profound impact as an educator and a mentor. By all accounts, let me just say a few things about Pete. Pete was optimistic and a humble man and very, very kind person and a great empathetic teacher and mentor. And he was really largely responsible for beginning the college's relationship with the Grainger Foundation, which eventually led to our namings 6 years ago as the Grainger College of Engineering. So we're just super excited about the Hall of Fame members and their accomplishments, and are really grateful to Arvind and Sidney for returning to campus to share their insights ahead of their induction tonight. To introduce our distinguished guests, I'm actually pleased to be joined on stage by another very accomplished individual, Mary McDowell. Mary is a Grainger Engineering Computer Science alumna. She's a former CEO of Polycom and Metal Network, and currently is serving on multiple public company boards. We're grateful for her leadership as she's the chair of our advisory board of our Board of Visitors. And we also have many Board of Visitors members here today, so I want to thank them as well for being here today for our College of Engineering Board of Visitors. So let me please turn it over to Mary, and let's welcome her as well. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'm software. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Dean Bashir. It's really great to be back on campus among so many members of the Grainger community. This college shaped my career and really my life in so many ways, and it's wonderful to see what lies ahead for the future of engineering as embodied in the great faculty and students of this community. I'm very honored to take part in this conversation where we recognize two leaders who embody the excellence that is celebrated by the Grainger Engineering Hall of Fame. Our first distinguished guest is Arvind Krishna. Arvind is chairman and CEO of IBM, where he has guided the company's growth in artificial intelligence, cloud computing, quantum, and blockchain technologies. For more than 30 years with IBM, Arvind has held leadership roles in IBM Research, Cloud and Cognitive Software, and the company's Systems and Technology Group. He played a key role in shaping IBM's hybrid cloud strategy and led the $34 billion acquisition of Red Hat, which was the largest ever in the software industry. He's a strong advocate for advancing science and technology research and has driven initiatives in core and emerging technologies that have redefined IBM's software and services. He earned a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and a master's and PhD in EE here at the University of Illinois. Please join me in welcoming Arvind Krishna. Also joining us today is distinguished alumnus Sidney Lu. Sidney Lu is chairman and CEO of FoxConn Interconnect Technology, a global firm active in design, development, manufacturing, assembly, and after-sales service across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. FIT is the largest consumer electronics connector manufacturer in Asia. And under Sidney's leadership, the company grew from a connector group outside the top 50 to one of the top 4 connector firms worldwide. He has driven operational excellence by introducing scientific analysis and total quality systems in engineering, product development, and manufacturing operations. He earned dual Bachelor of Science degrees in mechanical engineering and mathematics from the University of Illinois. In honor of his mother's visionary support and steadfast belief in the power of education, he established the Tung Chau Julia Lu Professorship. He also gave $12 million to launch the Lu Center for Learning and Innovation and has donated over $21.5 million toward the Transform MEB project, leading to the renaming of the Mechanical Engineering Building as the Sidney Lu Mechanical Engineering Building. Please join me in welcoming Sidney Lu.
All right, thank you, Mary. So let me get the conversation started. So as two of the biggest tech leaders today in the world, maybe I can get your general perspective on like what excites you today about what is shaping your businesses. So I'll start with Arvind.
Look, I think technology is becoming even more important to the real economy. Technologists have always, engineers, and I'm assuming some of the people in the room are engineers, have always thought of technology as important, but it's shaping the real economy. And when by shaping the real economy, think back to about 50 years ago. Companies that did physical goods were by and large the ones that had all of the value. Think oil, think food, think consumer packaged goods. If you go forward, financial services began to raise itself. Technology. And so the question is why? Because technology allows you to scale, it allows you to get global reach, it allows you to have an impact upon the entire population of the globe, and hence it provides a lot of value and can do that. That is what excites me. Many people think we're near the tail end of that. You hear people talking about that. It's actually, I think, the exact opposite. I think we're at the beginning of that journey, and as technology has that impact, then hopefully we can all have a bigger and bigger piece of that impact, and that gives growth to individuals, it gives growth to colleges, it gives growth to the state, it gives growth to countries. So that's actually what excites me the most right now.
Sidney, would you like to comment to that?
Tough to follow that, huh? The world is getting more and more complex, also more and more splintered. But through it all, technology is the one that brings the humanity upwards. So right now the buzzword is AI, right? I mean, a few years ago is EV. Then, we look at the .com. But as Arvind just pointed out, technology itself is an evolutionary process of humankind, right? As a species, what is the general theme of all of us? We want to make tomorrow better for us. And that, to me, is an endless optimism for our species. So we have a lot of problems we're facing today, but guess what? There are also a lot of solutions out there. So let's work together. Really, really pay attention to technology. And let us bring ourselves, the species, here on this earth, elevate us to be even better.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, both of you.
Maybe just building on that point a little bit, as you think about the convergence of hardware, software, production capabilities, how do you see that as sort of furthering this dream of uplifting the world and really changing the technology landscape? I mean, you guys are in very different points in the technology value chain, but I think you both have key roles to play in that. So whichever one of you would like to opine first.
Well, if you look at us, FoxConn as a group, I spun out from that, but actually FoxConn started as a connector cable business, then become huge in terms of OEM and manufacturing. Then we spun off 2017. So if you look upon that, the only thing that strikes me is When I was a student, I mean, just having that HP pocket calculator, I don't know how many of you even remember that. That was like the coolest things in engineering, right? You have one of those, they say, ooh. But look at it today. I mean, everybody has a notebook, right? Not just a notebook. I mean, that notebook actually used to be a mainframe IBM computer. So you think about that, right? So this is what technology has bring us. This is what FoxConn plays a little bit of that in this success.
That's terrific. Please.
Look, I think many people think of technology as in the end being the user interface. But to the point that Mary started with, you actually need the complete stack to get that value. At any given time, where the price goes varies. You go back 40 or 50 years ago, the price was all in the semiconductors and the chips. You go fast forward 20 years after that into the 90s, the price was in what is called a system. You use the word laptop. That is kind of where the value went. Then it kind of went to cloud applications. It goes all over the place. But what people forget is every single layer is actually equally important to the end goal. So you need the user interface. You need all of the software. You need all of the connectivity. You need all of the semiconductors. You need all of the connectors. By the way, let me keep going. You need power. You need energy. You need a physical building. You need all those things. And it is really important for those who worry about shaping the future that you have enough of the skills at every one of those levels. Otherwise, none of the value exists.
Great, thank you. Let me follow up with the next question. So this is to Arvind specifically. So IBM and yourself have shown tremendous leadership when it comes to quantum. We have a big center here at University of Illinois. You have a great partnership with the state of Illinois. Your partners in the Illinois Quantum and Microelectronics Park, the National Quantum Algorithm Center. So there's tremendous progress and a lot of great work going on together. What do you see as the biggest barriers to achieving fault-tolerant quantum computer, and what is the time scale in your mind?
I'll put the time scale out there as 4 years. Put some fuzziness on it, because if there's still some hard engineering problems to be solved, there's some fuzziness around the 4 years. But if I was to pick a point, I'll pick 2029. Then you kind of say, what's the difficulty? So, look, so right now, the underlying component technology, I'll call it a qubit or a quantum bit for the sake of any other word, they tend to be error-prone, they tend to be faulty, and they're kind of good right now for a little bit less than a millisecond. That's the reality of where we are right now. So how do you get them? I think they're always going to be error-prone. So you got to do error correction. That's the only route. People who are trying to build a perfect qubit, I think that may happen, but I'm not going to wait for that. I think that is after my lifetime. So you got to get error correction done. And then the debate used to be, do you need thousands of error-prone qubits to get a logical? And I think that answer is down to now maybe between 10 and 20 times. That now makes it an engineering challenge as opposed to a physics challenge. By physics, I mean we still need to figure out a way to flip a bit. We still need to figure out how to make these things using materials. That, to me, is the science. I think we are beyond that. To get to the scale of what you're asking, the next 4 years journey is a really tough engineering challenge, but I think it's an engineering challenge. That gives you more precision in a roadmap, and that's why I believe we can get there. So error correction, and how do you get thousands of physical qubits in a cryostat is kind of where I would put the two issues.
Let me do a follow-up on that quickly. So can you also talk about AI and how AI and quantum might advance each other or work together?
I actually think this is going to be, AI will help quantum, that is for sure, because you can use AI to help you design programs, design circuits, understand how to interact with something whose underlying mathematics is dramatically different. So one side is clear. I think quantum will help AI, but in the longer term. Once we get quantum to scale a bit beyond what I just talked about, maybe another 3-4 years after that, What quantum, because of the underlying mathematics, can do, it's really good at picking up hidden patterns in data. What is AI trying to do? It's trying to come up with a model representation of data which includes those hidden patterns. So I think in the long term, we know that quantum machine learning, which is a term being used by theorists and mathematicians, will happen. The question is, will it be of scale enough to make a huge difference? And I think that that is the one that I'm putting is out there a bit further. But AI helping quantum is here and now.
Thank you.
So, Sidney, I am going to ask you for some career advice for folks in the room. So what I understand about your remarkable career is you studied hard while you were here, got some great degrees, and then when you joined FoxConn, you had an idea for what the company could be, but it didn't exist. So you were essentially a startup within the company, and you grew it from not on the map to one of the top 4 in the world. So for everybody here who might be interested in a startup, which I presume is probably 99% of the room, what advice would you have for them?
Any kind of a career is hard. So first of all, people ask me this funny question. When I left here, I worked for General Motors, Packard Electric, Advanced Engineering, down in Warren, Ohio, okay? And people ask me, why you choose that job? Well, hate to say this, but in 81 and 82, the economy all of a sudden thawed. So it was tough on 80, but when 80 and 82 comes, people start hiring. And it was really bad because I had 9 offers. So people don't hate me for that, but that was just the time, not because of me, okay? And it just turned out that the offer from General Motors was one of the attractive ones, so I just took it. But I had the privilege, before I took the job, I had 2 summer jobs in Rockford, Illinois. So I understand what the engineers do. But that, to me, is most important. So when I was coming up here studying, all of a sudden one night I lose sleep because I was like, if I keep going like this 1.5 years, I'll be graduating, and then what am I going to do? So I'm a mechanical engineer. So what does a mechanical engineer do? I have absolutely no idea. But it's so great here in Illinois is we have great advisors. And I have to give a shout to Jonathan, the dean. I mean, we have really, really out of the ballpark placement office. These are the folks that are going to help you. So first of all, my advisor, Dr. Su, told me, he said, Sidney, you need to get a summer job or 2, just to understand what those engineers actually do. So I went to the placement office, and they said, Sidney, you need to fill out this form, and these are the type of companies that are looking for summer jobs. And you look on the board, you see which one you want, you pick it. I said, no, not only that. So you write to them. So we'll teach you how to write to them. We'll teach you how to highlight your strong points, so they're interested in hiring you. So they give me all these advices. And so I actually have 2 summer jobs. So when I go and actually have interviews, I have myself a portfolio of all the summer jobs I did, what I did, junior, senior classes I took, and also the projects that I aced, not the one that I flunked. Right? I have really a portfolio ready, and I went on the job interviews. So I have a really good success rate. So I interviewed 10 companies, I got 9 offers. So that's pretty good. And one company who didn't give me the offer, I was kind of curious, so I called them up. And they say, we interview you? And I'm like, what? I'm not going to name the company, but they're the ones that have the LA fires. Now I understand why.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. By the way, Sidney, you said that, our advisors are helping students write letters, and now we're trying to make sure they don't use AI to write letters. That's the goal. And let me follow up on a similar thread with Arvind. So Arvind, I've heard him say before, you've said before that you've had 2 jobs in your career, one at the University of Illinois as a graduate student and one at IBM. So you had a different trajectory where you stayed with one company, and that was the time where people used to stay with the company for a long period of time. So if you can just talk about that as to how what we did here prepared you, but also why you chose IBM and just the trajectory from there.
Sure. Well, the person you can thank for me being at IBM is actually sitting right there, was my advisor, Bruce Hayek. And I'll tell you, so when I was finishing up, and I'll come back to the quality of the education, what all I learned. When I was finishing up, you're getting a PhD, and I was in a reasonably theoretical area of information theory. 99% of people head towards being faculty. And Bruce gave me the very strong advice, you should look at industrial research, not just at faculty roles. So I began to do that. And because I was in information and networking, you kind of naively think, well, that means you should go work for a telecom company. And I got a few offers. And IBM was on campus, and he pushed me that you should go talk to them and go interview there. And I said, like, I don't know this stuff. I mean, like, yeah, okay, you've done some computer engineering, but like, I'm a networking guy. But you go there, and it was an aha, because when you go there, you realize, and I think 35 years have shown that, it was obvious when you go there and talk to people that computers are going to actually go run everything. And if that's the case, then you'd rather be there. And let me acknowledge, when you go there, you're thinking this is for 5, 6 years, but you could do so many different things. I started doing networking, switched to doing what is now called cyber, then did a lot of work around databases, then did semiconductors and manufacturing. And you kind of get that full breadth, and you begin to think, can I begin to use this breadth? And along the path, you evolve. And I would tell you that, yes, there are hard skills. I mean, Sidney mentioned a bunch of them, the actual classes, the projects. I give equal weight almost to the soft skills which you can pick up in a place like Illinois. What do I mean by the soft skills? How do you communicate what you're doing to other people? How do you explain the value and why that is there? Because a lot of people think, I'll say it in one sentence or write down one thing, and it is not the case. And those soft skills, including of how do you work with people, are as important to business success as the other pieces. And I think that you can, if you keep your eyes and ears open, you can implicitly pick them up in a place like this, and that kind of builds. It amplifies the hard skills that you pick up. And that's kind of been the evolution, that you can sort of see your path. It looks hard. Somebody was talking about how engineers think. The other way engineers think is, it doesn't matter how hard the problem is. You deconstruct it, make progress in the first piece, then make progress in the second piece, and kind of go your way. By the way, the world changes along that, so that's okay. And then you can think of something different. And those are skills that you pick up explicitly and implicitly from all of the faculty and all of the classes that you take here.
Great, thank you. Thank you. That's great advice to students. Let me come back to your businesses, and I have a question for both of you. So across enterprise and manufacturing, customers are expecting rapid innovation. And you need to also do that just to stay profitable. So rapid innovation and also tailored solutions, and there's a lot of nuance to those tailored solutions. So how do you balance these pressures with sort of reliability, quality, and long-term innovation?
Well, like people say, we call it the Bermuda Triangle. So you want to have the best quality, you want to have the shortest delivery time, and you want it at the best cost. So those are the three triangles, and then you can only pick two. You can never get all three, right? So how do you balance that? It's more of an art than a science, right? It's much more than that. And coming back on entrepreneurship and all that, the same. You didn't have to start on your own. You need some base. So go work for some corporations and whatnot. Pick up what they have that you'll lack of. And for people who really want to start their career, my advice to you is, first of all, figure out how you're going to put food on the table for the next 2 years. Capital is very expensive, and it's very important, right? If you have that to sustain you, then you clip forward. If not, hunker down, get a job, get some savings, and get some connections, then move on.
Great advice.
I'm going to build on what Sidney said. You got the 3 points. There's always that trade-off between quality, cost, and time. But you can add to it, what are the skills of your people right now? And he used the word capital. How expensive is it going to be to get there? As you have to then balance amongst them. And it is an art form. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a science here. But the balance also is dependent upon where you are in your life cycle as a company and on your customer. Because you can walk up to the customer. So don't believe that they've asked for all this and now you got to do it in the abstract and throw it over the line. You can go to them and say, which is more important to you, cost or time? And they will often be open with you and tell you. But you've got to build that relationship and build that trust. Skills of your people, you can actually improve over time. Capital is actually where I think smart management comes in. And by the way, FoxConn is a great example of that. Sidney's being humble about capital is hard to find. They get more done with less capital than almost anybody else in the world. So those are parts of what you have to learn as business leaders on how do you balance across all those things. But the point you're making on bespoke, look, there is a balance. If the bespoke is really going to serve a business a lot better, maybe it's worth doing. But if the bespoke is simply going to be a couple of % better for them, I would go straight up to them and say, look, if you accept a common answer, it'll be half the cost. Yes, you're giving up 2, 3, 5%, but it's half the cost. There isn't anybody in the world who would say no to that.
Great, thank you.
So in the spirit of other trade-offs, as I read about these huge capital and OpEx outlays that some companies are making in AI general purpose platforms, at least I've read that IBM is making very different choices and focusing on more specialized models. So can you talk a little bit about how you evaluated those trade-offs and set this direction for IBM, please?
Sure. Look, I call it an and strategy, meaning the extremely large models, which are, to put a number out there, for each company that does them, they're spending $50 billion a year right now on CapEx, and the numbers are only going up from there, not down. The biggest folks are talking about spending $200 to $300 billion each per year to go get there. If you are in a consumer world, meaning B2C, I think that it makes complete economic sense to go do that. And why do I say that? Suppose you have a few 100 million customers, just 7.5 billion people on the planet. If you can put a bit more function in your model, maybe you'll get all the Finns to embrace it. You get 10 million more. Maybe you'll get all the French to come in. That's a 60 million more. It makes sense to build one thing that is the most capable because that is where you're going. What's the trade-off? You are actually going to have a lot more energy and a lot more capital for each user also. Go to an enterprise. They don't need to translate Finnish to French or write a haiku in Japanese. They're interested in summarizing a legal document or knowing that their invoice and their statement of work matched. You can do that with a much smaller model. So if you're looking at enterprise use cases, the much smaller, if you can run them at 1% of the energy and cost, suddenly is a lot more appealing. So I take that and I say, okay, we'll partner with some who do the very large if I need a very large, but for the 99% of what we take to an enterprise, the small is much, much more attractive. And by the way, the history of technology in the world shows economics usually wins out. Fighting economics, you can do it for the short term, you can't really do it for the medium term, forget the long term.
That's great, thank you.
Great, that's great advice, thank you. So I have a question for Sidney, and it's just, I think Mary alluded to that. So data centers, let's just talk about that for a second. Data centers for these large language models, and I think both of you can respond to this if you like. But they're a critical part of advancing AI. And now companies are building data centers that are needing a gigawatt. Like a nuclear reactor next to them is what will be needed. If not, Obviously, the cost of electricity in the region where you put the data center goes up. The water bills are going up. So how can this race continue? Should we be thinking about designing data centers differently? What do you think short term and long term in that domain? What should we do?
Well, the speed of development is so fast. I don't think today, if you look, talk to the Googles of the world or even OpenAI, the thing is changing so fast and they are building so fast, I don't think there's time to think. Absolutely not. If you really think, you wouldn't do what you're doing.
Well, that's
right? So first of all, it's reacting, right? Because demand is there. And Wall Street is clamoring for it. If you don't jump on the wagon, I mean, your stock's gonna sink, even though you're doing great. So that's the whole deal. That's the whole environment that we're in right now. That being said, is that an AI bubble? I don't think so. I don't think so. Why? Because people forget the benefits, the productivities, and whatnot. That's potentially, and some of it has already been realized. You got to realize, if people are throwing hundreds and billions dollars on this thing, first of all, they all come from great universities. They're all smart, right? So nobody's fool enough to think otherwise. And maybe there's bubble in terms of financial issues. But same thing as .com. .com crashed before. But guess what? Out of .com comes where? Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft. Where are they now? $1 trillion companies. So AI is here. The potential benefits of AI is here. So you're going to have hiccup. You're going to have peak and valley. But that being said, the trend is set.
Arvind, I know you have an opinion on this.
Look, first, let me just agree with the last part of what Sidney said. Some will thrive, some will disappoint. That's the nature of capitalism. And if you look at the two economists who won the Nobel Prize this year, that's kind of what they wrote, that actually economies that allow that to happen tend to dramatically outperform others. That's just the nature of it. The difference also is at least 2/3 of those who are committing this money and this capex are doing it out of their cash flow. They're not doing it out of debt or equity. That does make it much more likely to thrive. On your power question, it's likely to be an unpopular answer. Doing nuclear, at least in the West, best case is a 10 to 15-year journey. It's not a short-term answer. So it doesn't help you to go down that path. Renewables are great, but you need a backup because renewables are not there all the time. And so the only backup which is somewhat reasonable right now is probably gas. I mean, just the only pragmatic answer for the next 5 years. And I could look at all of you and say, burning gas is better than not burning it, by the way, because methane is actually much worse for the environment than carbon dioxide. So gas is the only short-term answer that is there. And I think the gigawatt is because that's kind of the limit of gas. And we are going to be constrained, by the way, even on gas, because from talking to my friends in those industries, at least 3 out of the 4, I think, are sold out till about 2030 almost, even on gas. And so, yes, if you're in a desert, maybe solar can help to decrease the load. But those are the only 2 short-term pragmatic answers. And the electrification beyond data centers and AI is just driving the need for more electricity, and that is going to be the need. I do, by the way, applaud what the school here is doing in trying to get nuclear down to a shorter cycle. That'll take time, though. It'll take a few years to get the research done, and then maybe it's a shorter cycle and not a 10-year. And I do think nuclear is a wonderful long-term answer, and hopefully then this is just a short-term blip.
I can do a follow-up on this myself. So you're both running also, international companies, global companies that have sites all around the world. So do you see, or do you have to make any differences, like different decisions or differences in your decision-making process when you talk about business in Europe versus business in the US? or Asia when it comes to this energy question or some of these questions that relate to growth of these data centers and AI?
I'm going to be provocative and then give it to Sydney. Like, who in the right mind would put up anything energy intensive in Europe? I mean, like, the cost, the activism reaction, the lack of supply, no real government or public support. I mean, so I'm sorry. I mean, like, anything energy intensive, you're going to do in North America, you're going to perhaps do in the Middle East, and portions of Southeast Asia, if they can get the infrastructure together, are probably great for it. And the political climate in most of Africa would make it really hard to make a multi-billion physical infrastructure investment there. So there's just a very pragmatic but pointed answer.
Thank you.
Well said. Well said. I mean, on the other hand, though, when we look at the world, first of all, every region is unique. And that is also one of the reasons why I love it here. You look around the room here, how many international students we have, right? I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Should we get a show of hands? Who's an international student in this room?
See?
That's awesome.
Right? It's mind-boggling. Well, that is why it's so important. That's why we talk about Illinois experience. It's so important because you're connected. You learn all this human skill, not only interfacing, for instance, with in-state students, out-of-state students, Americans, but there's so many international students. That way you kind of appreciate the cultural diversity. You build up that tolerance, you build that communication understanding, and that helps when you have international operation. So besides the reality of the politics and all the differences on building data center, on the softer side, the human side, the connectivity, Illinois does give you a very, very good foundation.
Thank you.
So I have another question for Arvind, maybe equally provocative. So I think we as engineers, technologists, we are very excited about the potential in AI. But in the popular media, you see pictures of people with 10 fingers, you see video fakes, you see kind of stories about everybody losing their jobs and we're going to achieve the singularity and all this kind of stuff is going to happen. So what role do you see for public policy and sort of making sure we've got the foundation for the good capitalist results, but also respecting some of the human concerns?
Yeah. So first on the first part on the employment piece, which I think is one of the things you aimed at, do I believe there will be some displacement? And I'm using the word displacement, meaning some roles you will just require fewer in total number if I look out over 5 years or 10 years? Yes. I put that at less than 10% of total employment. Then you have to ask yourself, will there be more roles created? And that answer is an absolute yes. Let me take a simple one. We know that programmers will get more productive with AI. That's not a maybe. Our internal estimate is 40 to 50% more productivity. The naive or fixed mindset would say that means you need half the people. I'm actually thinking we need double. Why? If the cost of production comes down, think of that as being there, that means you can build many more things. That means you can go after markets that may not have been economical to go after before. So we will actually create more in that, but you're probably going to require fewer people who can answer the phone. You're probably going to require fewer people who can do customer service because those things AI can do really well. So there is displacement, but the net is going to be positive, and our own numbers inside show that. So the public policy piece, I'm sorry for the long answer, comes to how do we create the right public policy incentives for the upskilling, the reskilling, and the social safety nets, but any reasonably rich economy should be able to tolerate easily a 10% displacement. And I go back to a very simple example from 1900 to 1953. 47% of the population, probably higher in Illinois, worked on a farm physically. In 1953, it was 3%. 50% didn't get unemployed. Other things opened up, the automobile, restaurants, fast food, entertainment, hospitality, other things that were in the services industries opened up. So we've done this many times. We just have to do it one more time.
That's great. I love the optimism.
So there's a question to both of you, and this is, I'm going to reflect on Professor Pete Sauer here. He always was a great teacher, a great mentor, and talked about students and said, you know, students are not like bottles to be filled, but rather candles to be lit. So when you were a student here, can you talk about kind of what you really got out of the education here, and what would your advice to students be here as to what they should get out of their education here? Let's start with Sidney.
I guess Arvind and I will be different. Arvind's here for graduate school, and they're all here because they're very serious about their academics.
I mean, undergraduates are not? Is it?
Well, we're undergrad, right? I mean, we're a bunch of 17, 18 years old, right? I mean, it's the first time, you know, I mean, just get out of the house. There are no longer parents around. And you got a lot of, you know, same age students around, you know, and then there's both males and female. So you think about all the distractions. Right? So it's a very different experience. But really, I mean, kidding aside, it's great to be in Illinois. First of all, as I said, it's a huge, large student body. So you get to meet a lot of different people. And secondly is the academic is good. I mean, the pressure is here, so you know you can slack out, but not that much, right? So you still need to keep up to stay here. And really most important is the community of Illinois, the staff, the teachers, the local community. It's very nurturing. I mean, this is Midwest. This is not somewhere in the East Coast or West Coast. I mean, really, if you think about it, this is a very, very welcoming community. I was just talking to somebody actually commenting on 9/11. When 9/11 happens, I remember one of the students, foreign students, like they were in shock. And then the faculty, not only the faculty, I mean the community was telling him, he said, oh, don't worry, you know, I mean, you're fine. That is the nurturing spirits of Illinois. You know, that's really is what brings that ILL spirits here.
Great, thank you. And I can tell you, Sidney was no slacker. He got 2 degrees in 4 years, and he was registered for like 26 credits, multiple semesters. So he clearly was not doing other things. Right.
Look, everything Sidney said is invaluable advice for any student here. There is a second dimension, which is take advantage of all that the university has to offer. So have curiosity. So don't just do the small or narrow area. And as a grad student especially, it's very easy to fall into that trap. So take some breadth, explore other things. Yeah, you're probably not going to be the expert on that like people who are specializing in that, but that breadth can serve you really well later in life. As I said, I was a networking and information theory person. I remember taking one class on VLSI design. And you would wonder, like, you must be an idiot. Why would you do that? But some of the trade-offs that you learned and the way of thinking about those, because at that point, I didn't know that 20 years later, I might be helping manage a team that was building processors, and suddenly all those skills are useful. So that breadth is useful. And you were talking about quantum. How do you do quantum without semiconductors? I don't know. It's not that I'm going to be an expert on that, but it gives you a way of thinking. So curiosity, and the second one I would give you, I think that people obsess too much on grades. Don't just do easy classes or the ones where you think you'll get there. Have some grit. It's okay to kind of not do so well and learn how to pick up the material. So I do think that grit is important. Worst case, it'll teach you a life skill, because the chances that you're going to do well in every task assigned to you in your first job is 0. Actually, if you do, they'll keep giving you harder and harder things until you do fail. So picking up that skill in college where maybe it's not such a high price to learn that is also very important. Those are the two things that I would tell you all.
Thank you.
Great. So I understand the late Professor Pete Sauer once said what he loved about engineering is you get a chance to think both big and think small. So what does that mean to you two as leaders, that you're responsible for both the vision of global, enormous organizations operating at scale while making sure that when it comes time for the quarterly results and all the details that the analysts will be crawling all over you for, that's there too?
Well, first of all, I mean, Mary, you said it well, vision. So you got to have that to actually call the troops together. So everybody knows what the purpose, right? And you got to tell them over the hill, why is this so great? Why you need to climb over that hill, right? So that's vision. Vision will bring that to you. But in order to get there, it's all about execution. I mean, devils are all in the details. So if you're not deep enough, you understand the difficulties and the obstacles that you need to overcome, or having the resources ready, get down to the trenches with the troops to actually solve real-time problems, you're not going to get there. So you got to think big. You got to think big and think far, so the troops know where we're all going. You got to give them that promised land. But in the meantime, while everybody's marching over there, you got to be able to come in and assist and understand the problems and issues, and actually be in the trenches with the team to get there. So oftentimes, a lot of leaders, they say, oh, I delegate. No. Delegate, it's a 3-letter word. So avoid delegate. Understand and also empower, but in the meantime, assist.
Look, we're going to unfortunately sound remarkably similar. I'll use just slightly different analogies on those words. You got to think big, you got to think bold. Without that, you're going to fail. Then you've got to recursively apply it to smaller and smaller and tighter situations, and that is where success comes from. I would turn around and say, where things are going well, you can actually maybe delegate, because you can take your eye off those. There's a good team, they know what to do, they've got some record of success. And you've got to spend a huge amount of energy where things are not going well in order to both enable the team to get them out of the deadlock they might have this thing. In my experience, usually they have over-constrained themselves. They have actually put too many constraints on what they're trying to get done, which is why they're not succeeding. But unless you have some grasp of the details, how do you figure out, are they over-constrained or are they not? And so you've got to always operate in both modes, and it is situation specific. When do you want to operate large, and when do you want to operate in the details? And you've got to have both those skills, otherwise I think it's impossible to succeed as a leader.
Thank you.
Let me go back to, I think we're going to go maybe a couple of more technical questions, and then we'll kind of go back and forth. So to Arvind, this is coming back to impact of AI in quantum. There's been quite a bit of news, you and IBM talking about policy as well, AI policy. So what do you believe are the most important aspects of these topics, let's say AI and quantum, to convey to the general public as our society continues to learn more about these developments, as well as this ever-present discussion of AI policy in the public sphere?
Look, AI policy has many, many different dimensions. Quantum is probably a little bit simpler at this time. Part one, we are still, let's acknowledge it, if I use a baseball game analogy, we're in the first innings. So who will win? What techniques will happen? Who will get the business benefits? It's all up for grabs. When you're at that nascent stage, overregulation is the simplest way to kill the success of a whole area, because you will pause it. And so I think it's really important to, at this stage, try to foment more innovation, more openness, allow for exports, at least to the friendlies. You've got to have all of those things. And I would tell you, then to sort of balance the democratized use of AI, make sure that there is also some open, as in open source, open weight, take your word, take your pick, there, so that there is an alternate answer and you're not getting locked in only. I think that that's really important in AI policy at this stage. The second element of AI policy that I would highly endorse is there more funding for academia and research so that it's not just done only by private enterprise? There is some in the public domain. Unfortunately, right now, there isn't very much of that is going on. I think Illinois might be one of the rare states where there is some. I think New York is one of the states where they're talking some about it, but it's not at all common, and it's not common at the federal level right now. So I do think that those on AI is important. Quantum is quite different. I think in quantum, you got to do much like what DARPA did on autonomous vehicles, 40 years ago. You got to set out milestones, you got to set out experiments, so you drive excitement, and you make the public much more aware of what the promise can be. This is not a time at all to try to pick an answer, pick a technology, talk about can we grow a business. It is much more about creating excitement and trying to get more people sort of in the boat on quantum. And so those are sort of very different. AI, how do you scale it? Quantum, how do you actually make sure that we have leading technology?
Thank you.
So a question for Sidney, also in a more technical domain. So your company made headlines a couple months ago with news of a Saudi Arabian joint venture putting a manufacturing base in the Middle East for electric vehicle chargers. So how do you see the role of FIT in the expansion of electrified transportation, and how is that different around the world?
Well, EV is here. But then everybody realized EV is not a cure-all. So there's pause, right? But in the long run, with energy the way it is, I think EV will eventually get there. It just takes much longer than what people thought. And on top of that, so you think about the world. United States is doing okay, but it's kind of on its own. Europe has a lot of issues. Southeast Asia is coming up, but they're very small in scale. China pretty much just say, we're going to do it all on our own, right? So if you look at the world, and what is the other regions that has promises? It's really MENA. It's a region where it's energy rich, and it's coming up in populations. And also, there is a lot of money, capital, right? And they realize that too, because they say, well, okay, I mean, we got so much oil reserve, but that is not going to be the futures. Well, what's the next step? Next step to them is very simple. How do we have energy-based or energy-rich economy and turn that around into something more valuable? Well, data is the new oil. That's why you look at AI centers. Right now, competing ones are US and China. But guess what? Saudi Arabia coming, they say, we claim we want to be the third largest AI sovereignty. So they have the means, they have the capital, and they want to get there. Same thing with EV. So, right now we're using gas-powered vehicle, but we want to develop the base so we can have electric charge ones. And that's where we come in, because we have the technology, we have the know-how, and they have the market, and they have the capital. It's a perfect marriage.
Okay, thank you. So, a question to both of you. Looking ahead, what's your boldest vision? I'm going to put you on the spot here. For the next decade, And you're used to this, so it's not. What's your boldest vision for the next decade, and what's next for your company?
We're going to write this down, and in 10 years, we'll meet back here.
Well, our board will evaluate us well before that. Look, if I look at a 10-year, what's next for IBM is clearly we are putting a huge bet on quantum computing. And just to give a sense, quantum today is where GPUs were in 2015. So, Deeming is sitting there, Wenmei somewhere in the audience. Faculty here could have predicted in 2015 what was going to happen on GPUs. There was no question about it. But the average population, the average student, the average investor certainly did not. But by 2020, it was there. So I'm making a pretty bold statement. Quantum today is where GPUs were in 2015. And if you think about the sheer amount of usage, wealth, training, et cetera, that has happened, also coupled to all the data centers, you can now begin to predict forward what will happen. And I'll sort of say that's a monumental bet that we will make.
All right, Sidney.
For FIT, when we started in 2017 and said, how do we define fit? And I told people, I say, connectivity for a better world. People ask me, what does that mean? I say, what are we doing with connectivity? Basically, we deal with two things. First is energy, second is data. So we're connecting energies, we're connecting data. Right? So from that point on, everything is basic. Energy, well, you need to somehow transfer that over, right? How do you port it over? Copper wire? So you need that. It won't go away. Whatever you do, it won't go away. You need to deliver energy. Data. Well, there's so many ways to deliver data. But as AI evolved, as computing power, as quantum started, speed of data going to be increasing tremendously. Okay? So right now you have copper-based system. Optics is down the line. So you're always going to have transmitting. So to me, 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, well, these two basic doesn't change. And that's what I told my folks. I say, relax. You're in the basic business. We're going to be here a long time. Okay? But what we need to do is pay attention to the evolutions of technology. We need to be the forefront of all this stuff. We need to work with the premium companies, the ones out there, and we need to really shoot over and look at the basics of the physics in terms of material to make sure that we do a great job on connectivity. And that's all.
Okay, great answers. Thank you. I'm actually going to throw in a couple more questions. So this is coming back to you as a student and a person. So what was your favorite place to study and favorite place to have fun on campus when you were a student here?
Those are two different places. I was probably deadly boring in terms of where I worked. I worked in my apartment and I worked in my office. Okay? But it gave you a pretty good structure. You would normally be in the office by 9 in the morning. You would be there till 6 p.m. And probably most days you'd come back after dinner for another 2-3 hours. And if you had a really long paper to write, I would do it in my apartment because if you don't want a time stop, you want to keep going till 3 in the morning, that was easier.
And your office was where?
In Coordinated Science Lab, in CSL. And you can say maybe I was a glutton for punishment. My office actually was one of the fortunate or unfortunate ones whose door was right opposite my advisor's door. So
he could keep track of you all the time.
So you knew when each other was there. It wasn't like you could hide.
All right.
Well, to me, it's different. I mean, first of all, for studying, I usually stayed in the dorm or in my apartment because I like it, it's more personal. So I don't study in, for instance, in the study hall or in the library at all. So basically, I studied in my own room. But for fun, that's totally different. Actually, one of the places is still here. I mean, if you go down on the Green Street, there's Murphy's. That's easy. And the other one is gone. The other one used to be the Ron Robbins. And people ask me why, because they serve sliders for happy hours on Friday.
Some remember in the audience, maybe most don't. All right, well, thank you so much. So again, I want to thank Mary. Thank you, Mary, for being here as well. Thank you for helping moderate this. To both of you, Arvind and Sidney, thank you for sharing your time, your perspective, your talent. We really, really appreciate it. And it really exemplifies what it means to be a University of Illinois student and a Grainger College of Engineering student. We really look forward to induction this evening into the Hall of Fame. And also, for those of you actually who want to meet Arvind and Sidney, they have graciously agreed to stick around for a meet and greet in the South Lounge, which is, I think, right behind us. Is that right? Sorry? Oh, it's, okay, that way. All right, so go that way if you want to see Arvind and Sidney and meet them, actually. So again, thank you all. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you for being here.